Right now, we're going to get into some college football conversation and overall NFL talk. And we're going to be joined by Emory Hunt. He is of thefootballgameplan.com. You can check him out on Twitter at FBallGamePlan. And Emory, you are in a much nicer place than we are right now because you are not in the Northeast.
Definitely not the Northeast right now. I'm in Daytona Beach, Florida. But to be honest, today it's about 52 degrees and windy, so it feels like springtime up north.
Okay, so at least you're within a 10, 12 degree range of us. So
Exactly. But it's nice down here, though. I can't lie.
So first of all, the passing of Keith Jackson last night, age 89, for a lot of people, he was like the soundtrack of college football. I just wanted to ask you, what were your thoughts about his passing? For me, I'll never forget the wide right, Florida State Miami game, the 2006 BCS National Championship game. Vince Young basically winning the game just alone for Texas. So what were some of your thoughts of Keith Jackson's passing?
Man, he was one of the reasons why I wanted to pursue this profession of broadcasting or sportscasting, because he made it like an event. He was the conversation of college football. He was big time. So when you heard his voice, you knew it was a big time game. And just remembering the old Florida State-Florida matchups on ABC, those were must-see TV, and there was always Keith Jackson. The Michigan games, the Ohio State games, any time there was a big matchup or big opponent, Keith Jackson was that guy. And for me, there's only a few guys on that list for me, like Keith Jackson, Tim Brando with the old Jefferson Pilot Sports, Gus Johnson, Sean McDonough when he did CBS Sports College Football, and Pat Summerall. Those guys, and Dick Enberg with NBC, those guys were like the soundtrack to my football growing up, watching college football, watching NFL, and to hear Keith Jackson passing away definitely hit me right in the field.
I mean, just think about this for a second. The guy was calling college football games for a total of 54 years. That's unheard of in any profession. 54
Definitely.
years. That's amazing.
54 years, and we're still able to recall specific plays from certain games long ago. It's crazy.
Speaking of college football, we saw a great game on Monday night. Obviously, it was a big deal when Nick Saban went and benched his starting quarterback, went to the backup. But to me, I think the story of that game, Emory, wasn't that as much for me, at least. I know it's what the people are focusing a lot on, but on that first drive, the very first drive of the game, Georgia didn't run the ball. And to me, that set a precedent, and a bad precedent for the entire game, because when you have a two-headed monster like Sonny Michel and Nick Chubb, and you don't even run the ball in the first couple of plays of your game, that basically tells the defense what you're going to do and that you don't trust maybe your running game enough.
I'm always of the mindset that you have to dance with the person you brought to the party, and Georgia got that far in the season behind the backs of those two tailbacks, and he didn't understand that going into that game. Even within that game, they saw Sonny Michel had the hot hand, and they were riding him. He was still in Alabama, and rightfully so, because of his speed and quickness. Then you get into the fourth quarter, and he doesn't see the ball. So not only did you realize late in the first half, hey, we got to run the football to have a chance, you also realize that, hey, Michel's the guy that we need to ride with, but you don't understand that in the fourth quarter when the game counts the most. All of that combined with the fact that Alabama found their confidence with the freshman quarterback and got right back in that game and ultimately won it.
You look at also in that game, when they missed that field goal to go into overtime, I think a lot of people thought, man, Georgia's going to win this game. They get that sack. But then this kid from Hawaii, this left-handed quarterback who went to the same high school as Marcus Mariota, I'm still trying to work on the kid's last name. I assume his first name is Tua. He made a pass that not a lot of guys can make who are freshmen at that level. And we saw a game in which Jake Fromm made a lot of good passes, and he's a freshman. And we saw this kid from Alabama make that pass. And I'm going to go as far to say, Emory, that I don't think that kid's going to cede that starting job ever again as long as he's at Alabama.
Yeah, he's going to make it quite interesting for Nick Saban in the spring. But what I like about that throw the most wasn't the fact that he made the decision. That's a given. It was the type of throw that he made. He out-threw coverage. There was no way that safety could get back into the play and make a play on the ball because he threw it on a rope and helped lead the receiver to the end zone and right in the pocket for a touchdown. Because normally you'll see guys want to loft that throw, and that will bring the safety right back into the play. But he put it on a rope, which kept the safety where he needed to be in order for that pass to be completed and ultimately won them the game.
You know, I mentioned about Georgia getting away from the running game, and that's where I started my show. I started the show talking about the fact that if you got to a point, this point in the year, the playoffs, and we go back to the NFL here, you know, you have, for example, Kansas City, leading rusher in the NFL. The guy runs the ball 5 times in the second, third, and fourth quarters combined. You know, that leads to the choke job in Kansas City. You look at a team like the Eagles. It's about the running game and the defense right now. So many times you see teams get away from what got them to where they're at. Why do you think that is? Why do you think sometimes teams, they try to reinvent the wheel in the most desperate moments of their season?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think that one of the biggest reasons or causes for is that teams tend to overthink the situation for the sake of balance. Let's say, for instance, if you're Navy or Army and you get down the ball game and teams will say, okay, well, at this point, they got to start throwing. No, they're going to still run the football because one big run is the same thing as one big pass play. You're only a broken tackle or misassignment away from getting right back into the ball game, so stick to the script. And so you see it in the NFL with teams like New Orleans, like Philadelphia. You've seen it with a team like Kansas City last week. Tennessee realized, like, hey, we need to scale back and continue to run the football, and that's how we're going to get back into this ball game, and that's what happened. So if the Eagles want to find themselves playing in the NFC Championship game, they have to remember they have depth in the backfield. They have a really good offensive line. Their defense does a great job of getting off the field. So the running game is the way to go against a team like the Atlanta Falcons.
Right now on the Boardwalk Honda hotline is Emory Hunt. You can follow him on Twitter at FBall Gameplan. That's FBall Gameplan. He covers the college and NFL games. Emory, you mentioned the Eagles. This is an Eagles team that everyone keeps focusing on the quarterback. But I go back to the fact that the best quarterbacks don't always win the big game. Like when Peyton Manning won his 2 Super Bowls, he didn't have good games. In fact, that last Super Bowl, he even admitted it. The Broncos defense carried him there. Football is the ultimate team sport. And to me with the Eagles, this is not about the quarterback. This is about the other aspects of the game, the defense, the running game, the special teams. Because at the end of the day, teams win in football. It's not just one man.
Yeah, you're right. And I've always said that you have to win 2 out of the 3 facets of a game to win the ball game. So that's offense, defense, special teams. You only need to win 2 out of those 3. The Eagles have 2 strong areas to compete with. They have great defense and great special teams. So if they can win those, they can win this game. Now, as far as your point is, as far as the quarterback is concerned, you're absolutely right. Here's the thing. You're not going to ask Nick Foles to go out there and beat Dan Marino. You're going to go out there and ask Nick Foles to not turn the ball over, to keep the offense in positive situations, and to make sure every drive pays off with points. Whether that's 3 or 7, that's all you're asking him to do. People look at game management as a negative. No, it's just playing the right situation, and that's what the Eagles can do in this game because, again, they have great defense. They have great special teams. They can run the football if they stick with it. I think the complementary aspect of it will allow them to play their game. And, again, you're not going to ask Nick Foles to go out there and be Carson Wentz and run around. Just don't turn the ball over. Just play efficient football. If you can't get points, make sure you flip the field position for that defense to get a quick 3 and out and put the offense back on the field in favorable situations.
You look around the NFL playoffs right now. Jaguars, Vikings, 2 of the top 5 defenses in the NFL. Eagles, top 10 defense in the NFL. To me, you have 3, and even the Saints have a good defense. You know, we can't forget about them. You know, Cam Jordan, to me, is a candidate for Defensive Player of the Year. You have these very good defenses who are still alive in the playoffs, and to me, for those teams, everyone likes to focus on everything but the defense sometimes because it's all not, you know, it's not the quote unquote sexy thing, it's not glamorous. But there's a reason why they say defense wins championships. And to me, those teams, the Eagles, the Vikings, the Saints, and the Jaguars, they have something that, for example, the Steelers are lacking without Ryan Shazier, or the Titans, who gave up more points than they've scored this year, or even the Patriots, who have struggled at times at defense. They've been inconsistent. A good defense covers up a lot of problems for a team.
Absolutely. You can't win a game if you can't score points. And that's why defense is important. If I can hold you to field goals and I'm exchanging field goals for touchdowns, or if I'm forcing you to punt the football from back deep on your own end, and I'm winning the field position battle and coming away with 3 while you're not getting anything, that's a win. That's how defense affects the game. And coupled with the fact that if you're able to turn the ball over, let's say like New Orleans, they turn the ball over real well. Minnesota does a great job of getting after the quarterback. The Eagles do a great job in getting off the field on third down. So each one has great defense in a different way, and those aspects help you win football games. So, yes, defense does win championships because, again, offenses are great. They're crowd pleasers. Yes, you need points to win, but if you can't score points, you're going to win also.
And the funny thing is, it was actually Paul Bear Bryant who has said the full phrase. He's originally one who coined the phrase, offense sells tickets, but defense wins championships. So it's kind of feel full circle there for those of us who love college football. Talking with Emory Hunt here on 97.3 ESPN, Josh Hennig here on Sports Bash Saturday. Emory, before I ask you for your picks for the playoffs, going back to college football for a moment, you know, you had a bunch of pretty much everybody except for Drew Lock declared. You know, now you got Darnold coming out, Rosen coming out, Lamar Jackson's coming out. You know, to me, you know, I look at a lot of these guys who are coming out, and while I know they're talented, there is a part of me that wonders, are they really coming out at the right time? Because to me, I think Darnold, he needs another year of grooming. I think Lamar Jackson's been really held back in an offense that really does not allow him to be a quarterback. It asks him to be more of an offensive weapon at Louisville. You know, you look at a guy like Drew Lock, he actually took the opportunity to go back, and I think it's going to benefit him a lot. To me, I look at this quarterback class. They have a lot of potential, Emory, but I don't know if all these guys are going to be ready to start game one.
See, for me, is I look at it from a perspective of which quarterback would I would least like to face if I'm a defensive coordinator, and that's Lamar Jackson. So in that case, to me, Lamar Jackson is the best quarterback in his draft class. When you take a guy that makes it an 11-on-11 game that can balance the field, and he won't have to run for 1,500 yards in the NFL because he doesn't have to, because he has tailbacks that can do that. They're only doing that in Louisville because he's clearly the best athlete on the field. You take that element away and you add that element to a back. That back is going to now have a lot more rushing room. You add the fact that you can't blitz or you can't play man coverage all the time against a guy like Lamar Jackson, because as soon as you turn your back as a defensive back, he's going to be running right behind you and make it look like a 4-by-1 relay. So I think when you look at Jackson, he has a complete game. Heck, look in the playoffs. Look how different that Eagles offense is without Carson Wentz's mobility. Look at how Minnesota's offense was enhanced by Case Keenum's mobility. Look at the Tennessee Titans coming back because of Marcus Mariota's athleticism. So when you have a guy that can get outside the pocket, that can create with his legs, it's a defensive nightmare. And if I'm a team picking in the top 5 that needs a quarterback, Lamar Jackson wouldn't last past number 2.
See, the big thing for me with quarterbacks, I'm a little bit different, is that I'm a little obsessed with the quarterback making progressions. One of the things that frustrates me about a guy like Darnold, for example, is the fact that he doesn't always go through his progression. He'll stare down a guy, and that's where a lot of his interceptions come in. Whereas a guy like Rosen, he's more apt to go through the progressions. To me, the thing with Jackson is, and I understand what you're saying, you know, that's part of the reason why Michael Vick went where he did in the NFL draft 17 years ago now, you know, because of all the special elements. To me with Jackson, though, is that I feel like he still needs some work, just because, like I said, you come from an offense that asks you to be the end-all, be-all of everything in the offense, and he's never actually gotten the good training. And to me, if he doesn't go to a team that actually develops him properly, it's going to be a major detriment. Look at a guy like Deshaun Watson. He went to the perfect situation with a guy like Bill O'Brien, who basically said, I'm going to maximize everything out of you because I've won a playoff game with T.J. Yates, and you're 100 times better than T.J. Yates. So to me, whether it's Lamar Jackson or any of these guys, where they go is just as important as what they can do.
One thing that I think that's a big misconception about Jackson coming out of Louisville is that when you look at that offense, it's very similar to what the Jets are doing with John Morton as their OC. Quite honestly, Bobby Petrino has a pro-style offense. You routinely see him go through different progressions, a very layered passing game. So I think that's one element of Lamar Jackson's game that's being underrated is the fact that he does play the mental game and does play the progression game. It's just that it gets overshadowed because he's such a tremendous athlete. So even if you take away his 1,500 yards rushing and 30 rushing touchdowns, 30 rushing touchdowns over the last 2 seasons, he's still a top 3 passer in college football. And I think that's what's going to start to be realized as people start to dive into this film. Now, as far as Darnold to me is a guy that has that athleticism to get himself out of a jam. Rosen, I would be a little bit leery of because he doesn't have that athleticism. He has more of that Nick Foles, Eli Manning type of athleticism where you're going to see him get sacked a lot. So in the NFL nowadays, with speed being prevalent, you have to be able to get yourself out of a jam. And right now, I don't think Rosen can do that. That's why guys like Baker Mayfield or Sam Darnold or Lamar Jackson have more of a shot to have sustained success because they can get themselves out of harm's way.
All right, Emory, before I let you go, give us your picks for the divisional round here.
Oh, this is going to be tough, man, because I do like Atlanta to win in a close one. This game, to me, will look very similar to the Rams game last week. I think it's going to be a tight-knit game all the way through, but the quarterback will be the difference in this ball game, and Matt Ryan, that passing game, I believe, will be the reason why they move on to the next round. I think New Orleans knocks off Minnesota, and I also like Tennessee to keep it close, but New England will come away in the fourth quarter with the victory, and Steelers, I think, will roll against Jacksonville.
All right, Emory Hunt joined us. Follow him on Twitter at FBallGamePlan. It's FBallGamePlan, all one word on Twitter. Emory, appreciate the time as always. Enjoy Florida because I'm stuck up here.
Anytime, Josh. Get the shoveling, man.
Emory Hunt joining us here on Sports Bash Saturday here on 97.3 ESPN. Of course, all guests join us on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline.